Hello, how's it going? Today I am going to be doing my August wrap up. I thought it would be fun to kind of compare what my August TBR was to what I actually read. Did I read all of those books? No. Did I read other books? Yes. Were a lot of them audiobooks? Yes, very much so. So, kind of intro thoughts. This was my first time doing a TBR list for the month. Usually I just kind of read a book, put it down, and then kind of scan, deciding what I want to read next. I thought there were pros and cons to a TBR list, but I don't know if I'm going to do it exactly the way I did it this month. I felt a lot of motivation in the beginning of the month to be like, all right, I have this list of 9 books. Boom, boom, boom. Let's kind of like kick it out of the park. I don't know if that's the right saying, but I kind of felt towards the end that, well, I didn't read all the books that I thought I was going to, and it made me feel a little let down by myself. There's no need for that. There's absolutely zero need to feel like I disappointed myself just because I didn't read all of the books I thought I was going to, but I read other ones and I read, things like that. So brainstorming, ideas below please, of how I can kind of change it and tweak it a little bit so that it fits my desires, my wants, and doesn't leave me feeling like I could possibly hurt myself mentally. I've got some poetry books, well, a poetry book, some rom-coms, some investigative true crime, well, one investigative true crime book in this mix, so there's a whole bunch. Grab some popcorn, some tea, some coffee, and let's get right into it. So I'm starting it off with a bang. The first one that I read this month was Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. Wow. This is one of my favorite memoir audiobooks that I've ever listened to, read. It was so funny. Wow. It really just knocked it out of the park for me. It was laugh out loud, literal LOLing. Kind of hated that. But it was just great. I love an audiobook narrated by the author. How many times am I going to say that? But so 1, love that. 2, the way that he was just writes, I was just like on the edge of my seat, grasping for every word that he was saying. It was just like such an engaging book to listen to, and I just enjoyed every single second of it. So kind of going off of that high, the next book that I read was Bossypants by Tina Fey. I think that maybe my expectations for this audiobook were a little high. Tina Fey's great, and I'd heard great things about this audiobook, but it fell short for me. I didn't feel like I really connected with it at all, her stories. It jumped around a little too much, and I thought it was trying to be funny and did not quite hit. There were some chuckles, some smiles, but it wasn't anything like some of the other laugh out loud books that I've read. So I don't know, it was kind of a little bit of a disappointment for me. I think I gave it maybe 2 stars, 2 out of 5 on Goodreads. I think maybe I did come into it thinking that it was going to be so great and so awesome. And then that, coupled with just the actual book, made it so that the letdown plus like the high that I was just on all together melted into a pot, just did not breed. Nope, wrong word. Mix well, mixing bowl analogy, let's keep going with it. for an all-over book or audiobook experience. The next book we have is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. This is a thriller type of book. I think it's set in like Ireland. I should know, I did read it. But pros and cons. Pros. I thought it was very interesting that each chapter followed a different character. So the reader is given like 5 characters. There's the bride, the groomsman, the plus one, the bridesmaid, and the wedding planner. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. And these 5 characters, we know that one of them is the killer. We don't know who is killed, and we don't know why or who done it, you know? So that was a very interesting part. I like those dual perspectives and seeing kind of the same situations play out from different points of view. So say it was the wedding, we can walk along with the bride as she's walking down the aisle, but then we can also, in the next chapter, see it from the plus one's point of view as she's sitting in a pew watching the bride walk down the aisle. I really liked that. I thought that was interesting. Con, I thought it was kind of boring for about 80% of the book. The first 80% just was not grasping me like I thought it should for a suspenseful type of book. But the last 20 was very interesting, and I was like wide-eyed, gasping, trying to like figure it out as I'm reading along. So there are pros and cons to this. I probably would give this maybe like a 2.5, 3 out of 5. Just because of the fact that it took a while for me to get into it. And yeah, I wasn't that connected with the storyline. I wasn't rooting for anyone. I wasn't connected with any of the characters in that sense. Yeah, but that was The Guest List. All right, so far we have 3 books, and all 3 of them were also on my August TBR. So we're doing good, but the next book is the first one where I kind of deviated. I was on long car rides a lot this month, so I was reading or listening to a lot of audiobooks. So the next one that I listened to was Sadie, and I believe the author's name is Courtney Summers. This was like a heartbreaking story. I didn't know too much going into it. I knew that it was a full cast narration style production. This story follows along 2 people, I guess, not characters, they are books. Sadie, who is on this journey to avenge her sister who had recently died, her younger sister, and this podcast man, I can't think of what his name is, who is then following Sadie trying to find her. This story is very shrouded in a lot of mystery. We don't really know where Sadie's going, who she's looking for, what her plan is, what really happened to her little sister. And on the flip side, for the podcast guy, he's trying to, as he follows Sadie trying to find her, unfolds a lot of elements about her life that we, the reader, don't know about. Just as kind of a forewarning, there are elements of abuse in this, and it really is a hard story to swallow, but it was a beautiful story. I thought the narration was very cool because it had this podcast element, so it would go from a chapter that Sadie would narrate to this podcast style. So it'd be like, The Girls, episode 2, and then it'd be that. The podcast guy would be just describing what he's learned and what he's found. I think I gave this maybe a 3 out of 5. It was very great. It was a good story. But yeah, it was like an overall solid story, and I'm glad I read it. Okay, the next one I actually have the book for. A Song of Wrath and Ruin. This is by Roseanne, I think it's B. Roseanne A. Brown. And this is a fantasy novel. I hadn't read one in a very long time, so it was very nice to kind of dip in with this one. It was so beautiful and so not magical in like the sense of like whoosh, whoosh, magic, but magical in the sense that I feel like it transported me. It was just like this beautiful world and landscape that the author had constructed. It follows two characters. One is Karina. She is the Princess of Zoran, where the story predominantly takes place. And the other one is Malik, who is a refugee who we kind of learn has magic. The bulk of this story takes place during an event or festival called Solstasia, and Malik is one of the champions who kind of finesses his way into it. And without giving too much away, just Malik is trying to save his little sister who is taken by an evil spirit. And Karina is trying to bring someone that she loves back from the dead. And they're both kind of needing to use magic, and they're just on a collision course for each other. For Karina, she needs the heart of a king to complete her magic ritual. And for Malik, the evil spirit would like him to kill the princess in order to save his sister. And you see how those kind of can connect, because whoever wins this champions event will become king. It is so bequeathed, stated. Bequeathed is not the right word. But this was just such a fun read. I'm kind of angry at it though, because it was just came out in 2020, and so I'm going to have to wait a long time for the second one. But yes, I just thought this was such an engrossing storyline, and just like full of like glamour and beauty and just like pure imagery, I guess is the phrase I'm going with. I gave this a 4 out of 5. Highly recommend if you like fantasy novels or if you're trying to read more of them. It is a thick girl, and I had said that this was probably the most daunting book that I was planning to read in August, which was in my August TBR, but it went by so quickly, and so I highly recommend this. It was so cool. Okay, I have another audiobook to discuss, and this one is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me by Mindy Kaling. This was a fun audiobook. I laughed. I enjoyed listening to it. I thought that the stories that Mindy goes through kind of from her childhood to when she was working on The Office to afterwards, very funny. And yeah, I just overall enjoyed it. I don't think there's too much to say about it. It wasn't mind-blowing. It wasn't terrible. I think this kind of lands somewhere above Bossypants for me, but then a couple pegs down from Born a Crime. Okay, so my next one, I think is tied for first place for an audiobook memoir. It's tied probably with Born a Crime. I'll just say that. And it is Dear Girls by Ali Wong. Oh my gosh. This audiobook was so good. It was so funny. So funny. Oh my gosh. I was all the emotions. I was like, oh, cute. Hysterically laughing, almost peeing laughing, blushing. It was just like all of it. And Ali Wong just did such a superb job. The cool thing about this was that each chapter was formed as a letter to her daughters. So it started off with, Dear girls, blah, 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 here's my lesson. And just throughout the book, we are taken on a journey of how she met their father, how she met her husband, her other love stories, how she became a comedy writer and a comedian, and just like all of these stories kind of accumulated to us, the reader, knowing her very well, but also just like without even realizing it. Does that make sense? In some of her stories, oh my gosh, they were just like wild. So I would recommend this. This was just like such a great audiobook. I hope it's not being slept on. It was amazing. The next book is Aphrodite Made Me Do It. This is a poetry book and it was on my August TBR. Like, this was like a fine poetry book. It's pretty, it covers some dark topics and that's pretty sad and very moving, but I don't feel like I connected too much with it. I don't know if I was just trying to, kind of going off of what I was saying at the beginning, I was just trying to read it because I felt like I needed to finish it, or what that could have played a role in it. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't connect with this as much as I have with other poetry books that I've read, and I haven't read that many. I've read, what is that, Ruby Couar, I think. I've read hers and I feel like I enjoyed those more than I enjoyed this. Yeah, I guess that's kind of all the words and thoughts that I have on this. Overall, pleased with it, but don't feel like it will make or stay with me or have a lasting impact. I think it will fade as I read other books. The next book that I read this month was Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert. This was so cute. My thoughts. 1, it took longer than I expected to read. I don't think it's necessarily a thick book, but that's just kind of something I noted, is I wasn't flying through it as I thought I would. 2, strong AF female lead. I really loved that. Like, I thought more so than I have seen in other books. She was just like this strong, confident, independent woman, and she embraced that wholeheartedly in every aspect of her life, which I really enjoyed. Saucy. Need I say more? Another thing that I really liked was the way the author kind of intertwined the male ideology that they need to be strong and have no emotions and, you know, just like kind of like rub some dirt in it kind of aspects. We see the main guy, I think his name is Zafir, deal with some struggles and anxiety, and I just thought that was like a great added element that is not discussed enough, that I'm glad that Talia Hibbert took on. All over, just a very fun, cute, great rom-com with 2 awesome main protagonist characters. I think I gave it a 3.75 out of 5. Okay, the next one that I have was an audiobook, and though I listened to it, I feel like my thoughts won't be that great. It was I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. This has a kind of a cool concept behind the book. The author, Michelle, actually died before she was able to finish this. So some of the other people that she was working with, along with her husband, came together and put all of her research and work to formulate the rest of the book. It was very interesting. It's about the Golden State Killer and follows all of his killings. It was very dense though, so I often felt myself wander mentally and didn't really follow along as well as I feel like I should have been. I kind of feel bad because I don't think I can give this book the review that it might possibly deserve, and I didn't kind of engage with it enough to really give it a fair shot, is what I'm trying to say. I didn't like it. I gave it, I think, a 2 out of 5 maybe. I felt it was very dense. It was kind of random snippets of the author's actual life in there, which didn't make sense. And yeah, I just could not follow along. It was just a lot of things were happening at the same time or all together. But yeah, I guess that's my thoughts. But again, I don't know if I can really give it the fair chance that it deserves, because for some reason I just don't feel like I almost feel like I didn't read it even though I did listen to it. I forced myself to finish this book. Okay, this is the last book, and it is actually beach read, but I don't have the book right now because my friend is borrowing it, so I just have the dust cover. This was the first book that I read this month, actually, or in August. That month. In the month of August. And I love this. I thought the banter was very cute between January and Augustus. Gus. Their names are... why? But yes, the banter for these two was amazing. I was laughing out loud along with this book. It was just like a very cute, very fun rom-com, very quick read. That's kind of all there is to say about this. There's nothing too deep, too crazy that happened here. It was just a very romantic, cute, sort of enemies to lovers type of situation. And here we are. That is it. Those are all the books that I have read in August. As I said at the beginning, I'm still mulling over how I'd like to approach September with my TBR and how I want to define that and what I would like that to look like. So stay tuned for that video. But yeah, I feel like this was a great month full of some letdowns as well as some highlights, high points. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that my thoughts and words that came out of my mouth about these books were interesting for you guys. Leave a comment below with what you thought. Comments, questions, compliments, conjurings. And I will see you guys in the next one.